What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Panthers Nation Network, Season 5, Episode 7, going right after the game, fresh off the press. We try to, can console ourselves, try to keep, our emotions down just a little bit because there's a lot we could say about that game that we just witnessed. And I'll start it off here for Jason Brooks, for Sean T. Stewart, for Brock Sale, guys. We're going live here to give you a bit of a look. And right off the bat, I think you clean house. I think you just clean house right off the bat. Everyone can go head coach, OC, the scouts, the water boys, send them all home because that was just atrocious.
Oh yeah,
We need to
I mean,
release some Fire Mat Rule shirts. Sorry, we need to release some shirts because if we're gonna suck, I want to make money off of it at least. Because we are embarrassing to watch. Nobody wants to say anything positive about this team.
look, man, to do this on the day we finally honor Sam Mills under a regime that's done everything they've tried to do to erase the prior history of this franchise. And that's how you come out and you commemorate my dog, man. We just need to apologize. I want to give an apology to Christian McCaffrey. This is unfortunate that you having to waste your career here, but it is what it is. DJ Moore, you deserve an apology, my boy. I thought you was gonna be a number one. Thought you could be top 10, but it's not your fault. Brian Burns, you played great. It's not your fault. A few others too, but there's a lot of there's a lot of great talent on this team that we're wasting, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel for this. It's got to end. It's got to end. It's got to end soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around, and I think we can start at the top. We can go to the bottom, everything in between. End of the day, we are worse than the cardiac cat years. To your point, we did disrespect Sam Mills today, and by the amount of seats I saw open, there is not a lot of fandom to go around.
Nah.
It
We
was.
still got
I felt
loud
like I was.
enough.
I felt like in the beginning we were loud enough, but I felt it was like we had gone back in time to 2010, 2009, and the just horrors that those years were. You have the old end zones, the old logo. Loved seeing that, by the way. It was really cool, really nice gesture. They had not really marketed it at all up until today, and I was like, oh, that's insane. That's really awesome, but also a bit of a disgrace to honor the cornerstone of your team and play like that, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to give their flowers for the first half and what they were able to do in the first half. And of course, the announcers were just giving it all to Phil Snow. And you got to do some more research because Phil Snow is not the guy making that stuff happen anywhere around. You talk about the first and the first drives were just so weird to watch right off the bat. You get that punt, then you get the fourth down. We're going to talk about that, just go drive by drive, basically. Defense coming out in a good way. But your offense and the way that the calls you try or the plays you try to call right off the bat, and you have the quarterback sneak that you try to, or you have the quarterback sneak in that 3rd and 1 is just, again, the most uninspired, the most just easy to read and easy to defend plays out there that early on. You stop them. You're at good field position for the most part. You don't really get anything going on first down or second down other than a catch, pass to Ian Thomas. It was just stilted. It was just a standard subpar offense.
No signs of creativity. It's crazy though that in all the years that we had number one, we always thought 4th and 1s are automatic, 3rd and shorts are automatic. It's crazy how hard it's been, and to get zero push with either a Mayfield or McCaffrey, bro. I thought Deontay Foreman, right? I swear, I thought we got him for exactly these reasons. And at least if you're not gonna use them, at least have them in the backfield on that play. At least make them have to trust it or have to respect it. But to go into a backfield with Baker Mayfield, Christian McCaffrey, and how this offensive line has been playing, which has been so not as bad as last year, but they've still not provided me that push and that nastiness that I thought we were gonna get with signing guys like Corbett, Bozeman, having a guy like Ike Kwamu. We still haven't seen that offensive line come together and have an overall great performance. It's about what it's been though under the rule era. Just a lack of just a lack of heart, lack of just no flair, no nothing, and you just get beat up. You get beat up front, and that's exactly what happens.
We play like a college football team. It's like there's no real discipline in any sides of the ball because some teams, they have a good special teams. They can pop off with that. Our defense is good when our players make plays. It's not like we're shutting people down for an entire game. We just have little spurts of greatness on defense that really help us out, like that Luvu pick or a Brian Burns sack. having Jeremy Chin out there or not having Jeremy Chin out there really hurt us. Miles Hartsfield was getting routed up by tight ends all day, and it was tough to watch. I'm not going to lie. I'm not happy to be a Panthers fan right now.
No, I think we've all discussed it. I think the fact that our defense spends 3/4 of the time on the field, our offense can only stay on for as long as a first period in junior high. It is what it is. We can never seem to kind of find a consistent rhythm and balance. And so when you put all of that on your defense, at some point in time, you're going to break right throughout the course of the game. The bigger issue is around the coaching on the offensive side of the ball. There's no consistency there. There's no identity. McAdoo seems to be playing Uno, trying to figure out if he has a draw four or not, and he's not hitting on any cylinders. You can tell by the way the players are playing. McCaffrey looks frustrated in the face. DJ Moore's definitely frustrated. You just don't see it, and we just don't have it, and that starts at the top. So we've all said it. You said it at the beginning. Maybe we should wear T-shirts, but moreover, we think Tepper needs to come to his senses. It's time to change it up, and we need something fast and furious.
And I'll disagree with you while agreeing with you there, Jason. I think there is consistency on the offensive side. It's consistently just atrocious. It's nothing's there. I mean, it goes back to what we keep talking about with this, with your 10 plays that you have scripted at the beginning of the game. That is a staple in football. It's a staple of a good offensive coordinator. And what you're going to do, you try to be flashy, and you look at it again. Short pass to Ian Thomas in the middle. Christian McCaffrey up the middle, left to the left. And I get you want to keep it simple to start out. But then a 3rd and 1, you just, again, run it up, not even putting Foreman in there to try to make the defense thing. Put him in as a lead blocker. Or what happened to Giovanni Ricci? All the stuff he was doing in the preseason, everything, they were sending him out to the flat, having him go in the middle, having him run up. What happened to that? And that's what, and what you talk about with Tepper. We've had a lackluster offense for the last 4 years since Cam has left, even with Cam last year. And it was only masked by, the severity was taken away because you have a rotating, door of quarterbacks. So it's like, oh, we're just not getting consistent play. You're not having consistent. No, we've just had a lackluster offensive scheme. So I don't know what made Fitterer and Tepper in their right mind think that Ben McAdoo was going to be your savior and was going to come in and make good plays. Because even second half, we talk about it, 3 plays for -4 yards. You come out of the gates with that. What were you doing for 20 minutes in the locker room?
But to this point, all right. So Michael 329 had this to say in our comment section. Games like this make me wonder what happens during practice. The offense is making mistakes that you expect from a high school football team, and then Dimitri Conto's ad follows up to what Teddy said. I think maybe a couple years ago now about the lack of prep that this team does. The lack of prep that Coach Rule gives this team, bro, and it shows each and every week because there's no reason why short yardage situations you can't figure out what it is you need to do that's effective in the red zone. 2-point conversion. I know I'm jumping all the way towards the end, but again, there's still a lack of preparation. Like there's still no there's no semblance of what are we trying to accomplish with each play? Each play is supposed to accomplish something. Like you said, Jake, when you come out with scripted plays, they're supposed to accomplish something and at least establish what you want to do to that defense. We see nothing. Family, that's what you script out. I just can't imagine what the film sessions are like. Like, what are the coaches meeting like if what you're scripting out is only netting you negative 6 yards in the 3rd quarter? That's what you script.
We need a coach 30 in there. We need him in there looking at what's going on. Say, look, this is what you need to do. Someone's got to call them out on this.
And I think for the most part too, though, I'm sorry, Jet, to cut you off, but I think with that too, you talk about how we need to mix it up. If we've done the same thing over the first 4 weeks, right? What has been the result? Nothing has ever come to transpire to anything other than a mistaken win or a haphazard effort. What I think that we're missing the bigger point of is we keep complaining about the fact that the play calling and the execution. It really comes with the whole dynamic of, to your point, Shantice, what are we doing day to day inside that film room, inside that locker room? Because it's definitely not coming to fruition on the field. If every week you have this big game plan, this grandiose game plan, we're going to come in and we're going to make things happen, and we have to be patient. And we've been patient, and over again, we keep seeing the same lackluster effort on both. Probably the offense most of, but also on the defense when you start getting late in the games because they're tired and because they're getting beat up.
Yeah, it seems like there's zero communication between the coaches and the players. And I think that comes from not having enough real veterans, because if you hear Pat McAfee talk about the Colts dynamic when Pagano was there. He had veterans come in so they could relay the messages to the younger guys because those younger guys don't want to hear, even though he is a defensive coordinator, they don't want to hear all that talking from Phil Snow and all these guys telling him to do this, do this, do this. You need to have a guy to level the playing field and get people on the same page. It just seems like there's no chemistry between our coaches and players, and that's not going to get better unless we get somebody that just comes in and makes a presence for himself right away. I've been saying this for a long time. The Detroit guy, I keep forgetting his name.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell. Yeah.
And that's what baffles me about the offseason, and we keep bringing this up. What did you think was going to happen when you let guys like Stephon Gilmore and Hassan Reddick walk? I understand that there was a money issue per se, but like you, especially we saw it in the defensive backs tonight. If one guy goes down, the depth is not enough to handle a team that really only has one receiver that's at best, I'd say, a B-lister in the league. I mean, the Hopkins wasn't even out there, and we were still getting carved up like a Christmas turkey. I do not understand where it comes across and where you think, because you're right. I mean, Shaq is the oldest player, if I'm not mistaken, on that in that defensive area, and that's the only area you have it. Your front four, you have Ioannidis, but he again is just coming into this team, so it's not enough to establish a meaningful connection with the rest of the guys. And then you look back in the backfield, I guess Woods is probably your oldest guy back there now, if you keep Burris on the practice squad, and I do not understand where that money went and what they thought that was going to do.
And the craziest part is that I can tell you Gilmore probably didn't want to come back. I can for a guy that's been a defensive MVP, played for the Patriots, knows what it's like to play on a good team and a good system. I guarantee he saw what was going on in Carolina. It was great for him being from Rock Hill for a few weeks, but he saw that and got out of town. Hassan Reddick did vocalize that he wanted to stay, and for some reason, with the money even the money we gave DJ and Dante, we still had cap space. And I wondered, what were we going to do with that cap space for the entirety of the offseason? Where is it going to go? Because it's not going to last forever. You got to spend it. When you had Carlos Dunlap in your grasp, he walked out the door without a contract. JPP walked out the door without a contract. So you didn't add any other veteran pass rusher alongside Brian Burns. And you're seeing it now. Marquise Haynes he's a situational guy that I would bring in off of my bench as a rotational player. Yeturgos Matos, I've not seen anything of note to make me believe this guy's ever gonna develop into an NFL player. And I'm done waiting on it. And again, like I see in the comment section, it's not about individual player execution, even though it is. And Baker has got a lot of things that he's got to clean up. And it's not even clean up. Just clean your locker room up and just go ahead and bounce. Let's go ahead. Let's start your next career as a substitute teacher, and let's move on. Because at this point, bro, we don't have any answers. None of the answers that are going to save us are on this roster or on this coaching staff. And again, the quicker they cut bait, the sooner we can start to heal as a franchise and go find a real coach.
I think we just need to make a couple additions. Sorry.
I think ownership too. No. I think ownership too. I think ownership has to decide what they want to do, because for so long he's been saying he's going to bank on Matt Rule, and Matt Rule hasn't brought anything of substance to the Carolinas. We need something that's going to he's going to have to bridge back that relationship for all the things that have transpired between him and the city, as well as down in South Carolina, as well as what we have on the field. The product on the field is not anything that is going to bring anybody through those doors. And as you see it, we get more visitation than we do have our homegrown fans inside the stands. Today, I saw a lot of blue seats. I didn't see a whole lot of cheering going on that was, a lot of hype. I just saw the ordinary situational football going on. And that also plays into how our team plays, right? They feed off of that feedback, right? They feed off of the crowd. So if the crowd's not in it and they see that we're not trying to support them in the way that they see other teams being supported, that also plays a role into their psyche.
And from a business perspective, you're absolutely right, Jason. You'd think this was especially a 90s throwback for your field and end zones and your Sam Mills Day. You have a lot of you have pretty much half of your fan base right now that is that was there for the Cardiac Cats era from the beginning, feels marginalized right now, not, watching a team that they have very little connection to anymore. So you think you would promote that more so than just the day of, to get people to come out to a game like that, come out to the atmosphere, having all the retro stuff, build it up even more. So from a business perspective, that just seems like a fumble in itself. And honestly, at this point, it's getting to the point where I'm not even sure about if it's coaching and, the staff we have. I'm questioning the ownership as a whole. It's reaching Bob Johnson levels of incompetency in Charlotte right now, because I don't, I don't think I want him to have more of an impact or, a say in what goes on, because clearly he's proven he doesn't have the knowledge to make these decisions, or he doesn't have the, he doesn't want to.
The biggest thing we've noticed with Tepper from the very beginning is that he's lost any type of connection. Like you said, Jason, he's lost all the types of connection that he had to the city of Charlotte, to South Carolina. And again, like you said, a day like today, right? Sam Mills being the cornerstone of your franchise, a guy that only played a handful of seasons, but still has a long-lasting impact that's gone on for well over 20 years. Why did we just now find out the day of that they were doing the throwback logos in the end zones? They were putting the old Panthers logo in the middle of the field. Why was this not something that was circulated well before? I mean, mind you, bro, these events, there's no way they just all of a sudden plan this event the week of and say, hey, we're going to honor Sam Mills today and like on last Sunday. That goes into your offseason planning. So why do we not know about this? Like like you said, the people that watched the Panthers prior to Cam Newton, we do feel marginalized now because they've done away with everything that we knew about this franchise and that we loved at this point. And again, even today, you still did a half. It was a haphazard effort to give us any type of give that era of the franchise any type of recognition.
I think to your point, Brock, in terms of you were talking about, just needed to make some additions. I don't think that's the case here, because we take a look at it. When you look at the teams that have been, building up and bringing in talent, again, they already have that base, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but from a coaching perspective. You look at LA, you look at Tampa Bay, you look at Philly right now, especially as well. They all have had a coaching staff that has facilitated the ability to be successful and build up. And they were just waiting for some pieces. They needed Hurts to turn into what I would like to say that also, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last 2 years, I was a big proponent of getting Hurts up at that point in time and giving him a year to just learn to develop and build up on him, because I thought at the time that was going to pay the best dividends for what you could get at that point in time. And he went, if I'm not mistaken, in the second round. So you still had the opportunity to grab him. And so my thought process, though, is what I'm saying is, if you take a look at the Jags today, not by any means a team that is loaded with talent, both veteran presence or, raw ability. They have obviously, some of their younger guys, they're picking up some free agents, but you bring in a coach who took, the Eagles to the Super Bowl and got them that victory in Doug Peterson. And obviously there were some issues there at the end of their tenure, but now he goes straight. He's a experienced, celebrated, and I guess not celebrated, but he's won. He's proven himself, and you bring that to the organization. They're putting up numbers against the Eagles, who look like the best team in the NFL right now, and they're giving them a run for their money and only losing it there at the very end to a roster that is stacked. So I don't think it has anything to do with the talent we have here. Shanti's talked about it, apologizing to every guy that we have who's at the end of it. It's not like Ron Rivera and we just weren't loading up other talent. They're just McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Brian Burns. I mean, JC Horn. It's just gonna become a waste, because the coaching staff we have in right now it's atrocious. Phil Snow makes no adjustments going into halftime, and neither does Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo, I can understand. I wasn't expecting it from him anyway. Phil Snow, I really wasn't either. But all you had to do was just try to, you got out-coached in that regard. And it's not like you got out-coached by Bill Belichick, Sean McVay. You got out-coached by Cliff Kingsbury, who has been
terrible.
The poster child for just for being second guessed and being a meme as a coach, basically, and especially Kyler Murray as well. It's just aggravating to watch. It's deflating, because you go into the first half, you're like, all right, this gives us some life. Frankie Louvu has done it twice in 2 weeks now. You get the turnovers you want, and then it just goes all down the window. Shantice, I know you have something to say about it.
It's just funny that this coaching staff in particular, that had no NFL experience, thought that they could come in with restoration projects at quarterback 3 years in a row and figure it out. When I say, bro, the best approach they could have taken was break it down and rebuild it again. But you see, and you've seen what's happened in Jacksonville and what's happened in Philadelphia. When you go get young quarterbacks and you go you make a concerted effort to put weapons around them, and you give them coaches that are into developing them. Doug Peterson, we saw what Doug Peterson did with Carson Wentz. Had Carson Wentz looking like an MVP and a top 5 quarterback in the league. They got rid of Urban Meyer, who I think we all should have seen that coming with him and that being a train wreck. And you go get Trevor Lawrence, a real coach, and he goes from looking like a bust, like a generational bust, to a guy that can play competent football. And they have a team that's in position to win their division, as bad as it is. Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, goes from a guy that didn't look like he could play quarterback in the league the first year and a half that he entered the game, but now looks like an MVP candidate. It's having the same type of upswing Lamar Jackson had from year 1 to year 2. Like it's crazy what happens when you go into investing into your young guys and investing in the young quarterbacks instead of trying to fix guys that have proven to you year in and year out that they don't have it.
Yeah, well, 2 things I want to address here. So one thing is Shanti's, he did break it down and rebuilt it. He rebuilt it with Temple. So that's one. 2, you talk about adding pieces. I think to your point, I want to go to Brock's point and your point, Jack. I think you both are right. We do need to add pieces, but we need to add pieces in the right places, i.e. the offensive line. I think we keep trying to put Band-Aids on scars that we have never let heal. We haven't had a good line since 2015, 2016, if I had to say.
Oh, further than that, I would say.
I mean, at least one I would stand on. At least one I would stand on, right?
Yeah,
I would stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least one I would stand on. So that's one place I think we do need to add pieces. We really need to figure that part out, which is what we talk about every year. The other side to that, though, to your point, Jack, as far as, adding people and looking at Doug Peterson. Yeah, Doug Peterson is a different animal. This is why I said we should have never let someone like a Bieniemy walk out of the door, right? He's a proven person who's been in the system, who comes from a tree of coaches that has the know-how how to build a staff. Matt Rule came in with his wish list, and he's wished us all into the dumpster. That's what he's done over his tenure here. And so when you don't have, to your point, that consistency and tenure from a know-how of how to run an organization, this is what you get. And he thinks he knows better than the league. So he thinks his ideas are going to be bigger and better, whereas he's not relying on what the real basis of football is. And that's starting from the inside out. You start in the inner sanctums of the core of your team, and then you work your way out to your skilled players, in my opinion. Dallas has done it for the years on end. If you look at most of the successful teams, Belichick's always done it from the inside out. These are the teams that continue to build. And if you think about the Jaguars have been in rebuild mode over the last 5 years, and over the last 3 drafts, they've done impeccably well as far as how they've drafted, how they've attracted talent, which is why we can't go out and get the likes of a Sean Payton. Nobody wants to come and work for Temple. We can't go out and try to sell our organization with, we've got new ownership, we're going down a new path, because they see what we're putting together, and they see the calamity that is known as the Panthers. We are actually most likely the laughing stock of the league right now.
100%. If I don't understand why we decided to, if we were going to rebuild everything and start from scratch, why we decided to pull a college coach out when we've seen multiple times that really doesn't work in the NFL. There's a reason for that. The NFL is a completely different scenario. Not only do you have to be a professional yourself, but you need to know how to treat people like professionals. If you've ever heard a Matt Rule talk with the team, or like something where he's hyping him up in the Camp Confidential stuff, he uses like cheesy quotes, and like he'll throw out a Muhammad Ali quote out of nowhere.
Just
and
cliches and just empty.
It's just not good. We can't, I would, if I was a high schooler, maybe I'd be like, yeah, let's go. But if I'm a 25-year-old man making millions of dollars, I'm like, who's this goober up here talking about absolutely nothing?
We got guys making $20 million running wind sprints to a DBO signing back. But this is not, bro. What are we doing, bro? This is an unserious operation from top to bottom. And again, the only thing I think can save us right now is getting the coach like a Sean Payton that can put his foot down to a guy like David Tepper and say, look, this is my team. This is my operation. I'll run it.
I mean, I
Sean
think
Payton was coach a sixth grade football team than us.
I think Sean Payton and Ken Dorsey would laugh in our faces. I think that it goes back to the original sin, and it's why I think about it. I think we've downplayed because Tepper has stopped talking. He's stopped saying stuff in press conferences. He's stopped saying things in the media pretty much altogether, other than saying that he hates all of us in our basements because we don't know what goes on. I think that really the incompetency that is there. We talk about that original sin of firing your head coach and not firing your interim GM and allowing someone who was already, placing he was already getting a lot of land in Florida ready for retirement. He was ready to go, and you give him the reins. I mean, he came from Pittsburgh where they have not had a coaching change or a GM change in almost a decade. I mean, more than a decade. And I don't know about GM specifically, but as far as head coach, in a decade or so. So he didn't have any sort of familiarity with how that process is supposed to go. So from the get-go, he throws things. I don't put blame on Matt Rule and that coaching staff for coming in thinking they can succeed, because they're delusional. So of course they think they can succeed. Why wouldn't they think they can succeed? Because they've turned the program around at Baylor, and you're coming off of the successful stint with LSU for Joe Brady. Why wouldn't they think that? But that's where it gets even worse, is that I don't know, I think it almost gets to a point where, okay, we got to talk about this ownership right now. Someone's got to have an intervention with Tepper here, because he's not doing anything about it. He's not saying anything. He's not paying attention to any of it. And you're going to continue to just churn out mediocrity and be in this cycle because let me say this, we talk about the individual performance, even the offensive line. I mean, 2 sacks for 17 yards. I don't, fault Taylor Moton for the performance against JJ Watt. We have to remember he did not play that game last year when we played them. He was injured, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to have an impact regardless of what medical conditions he may or may not have had before the game. He was going to have an impact. And it gets to the point though where your offensive coordinator is calling not a simple play style, because if it was simple, Baker wouldn't have to be spending 15 seconds in the pocket looking for 3-4 reads down the field. Rule says our guys aren't getting open. I call BS on that. You have DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who can make things happen in open space and run around. They're speedy and shifty. But your offensive coordinator is not calling something simple. It's confusing because clearly he's taking too long. The offensive line is holding its own, but when it's 15 seconds they're having to wait, they're not going to be able to keep anyone down for that long. I mean, Baker was only sacked, like I said, twice. And rushed
is it complex though, or is it to the point of the matter that Baker's lost his confidence?
Probably a little bit of both.
I think from a complexity perspective, if you look at what we're calling, it's nothing complex about it. He's calling plays, trying to make a spark, because he can't be consistent on just running regular normal plays. To your point, why are we not using Dante Foreman as a scheme back in the backfield? I've said this since the beginning. Why are we not running 2 tight end sets? Why are we not running? I mean, there's a plethora of things that we could be using Robbie for and DJ Moore for. We've got a receiving tight end in Trimble, even though he dropped a pass today. But if you threw it to him more, he may catch it, because he probably wasn't even expecting the ball, because his number never gets called.
I will say, Ian Thomas and Trimble sold on us pretty early. I mean, yep. Chris Manhurst with dreads being Ian Thomas, and Chris Mangum, light skinned Chris Mangum, sold on us bad. Boy, I can't front with you. But it's just so many things that goes wrong with that offense that it's not just one person.
Right.
But I will say though, in the broadcast, I heard them talking about, and I heard it last week too, McAdoo's talking about, Baker's footwork is getting better. Bro, what year is Baker heading into?
We're way past the point of footwork.
6?
Hey, bro,
it gotta be right.
Like 5, I think 4 or 5. So either one, like 4 or 5. Bro, as a grown man, right? You've been playing quarterback for I don't know how long. When did we fit? So we just not figured out he had bad footwork. This is a new thing. Like this wasn't in the scouting report for anybody else, but we just not figured out he had bad footwork, and now he needs to work on that. And some of the throw that he missed. I know, Jack. We were talking about the flag route that he threw to DJ Moore to his inside. Bro, you drop it right there in the bucket. That's not a touchdown, but that's a huge gain. Gets you into the red zone for a chance to score. Something that you don't do a whole lot of. You know what I'm saying? You seem to be.
Well, and then a little bit later, he did the exact same thing, and he threw it way too short. I believe it was Robbie, to the point where it was almost nearly picked off. And that's the other thing, is that he's just, I mean, he's lackluster. And it's getting to the point where, at like I said, the biggest distinction between him and Sam Darnold was the turnovers. And the first one I'm going to put on him, because if DJ doesn't have to flip around and try to get that, he's going to make that catch every day that ends in a Y. The second one, again, I mean, that's JJ Watt, but you're also taking forever to get that ball out of your hands. And we've seen that time and time again, just taking forever to get the ball out of your hands. And so that's where I'm like, okay, I'm putting that on you. You got to, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, like you said, Jason, or if it's a, I don't think it's complex. I don't think it's complex at all. I think we're seeing the wide receivers literally get open, but this was why I was always concerned about doing this at the beginning, because I don't know what they thought we were going to get out of this year. And when you sign a quarterback like this and you put him into the system in the time frame you do, it's the same thing with Cam Newton. Their return on investment goes into a pressure cooker, and you need immediate return on investment right away, or at least a semblance that you're doing something well, or else it looks like a bust. Now, granted, we didn't pay that much money for him, but I think it's something we're also doing. And I think we started to do with Ike Ekwonu. I think when it's the first time you've drafted an offensive tackle in so long, we put him kind of in a pressure cooker. I'll step back and say that I, maybe expected a bit too much of him too quickly. I think he's not necessarily, improved by leaps and bounds, but I think it's getting consistent there. They weren't coming from his side of the ball, from his side of the field. This week it was coming from JJ Watt in the center. And the center is something I don't know what you expect when your center is not a proper center. I don't know why you think that's going to work when you've got a guy who that's not what he's supposed to be doing.
We're just trying to put the pieces together. It's not really like that. That O-line forever has been like a plug and play. Dennis Daly played 3 different positions on that O-line, basically. Like if we needed a center, Dennis Daly would have played center, and he was not good at any of them. Like we've been patching holes on that O-line for a real long time, and I don't think anything but like a star signing like Teron Armstead we could have got last year would really do the job. But in my opinion, I think there's only one person that can help us out that we have not a big chance to get, but a chance: Lamar Jackson. I think we need to start talking about that. We have cap space and we can clear a lot. That's the one person that, like, we've had the quarterbacks that can throw the ball, do whatever, like pocket passers, game manager type stuff. If we have a guy that can just change everything, he's the guy. He changed the boring offense with Joe Flacco, turned into one of the most dynamic, fun offenses in the league. Like that. Immediate success.
I would say, before we go down that route, because I honestly don't think in the end of the day we don't have enough to even give up for Lamar Jackson, to be honest with you.
He's going to be a free agent, correct?
Yeah, he's going to be a free agent, but it's going to take $300 million to get him at this point.
We can still find, if we really want to win, we're going to find that money.
Yeah, I don't think it would be worth. I think you should give Matt Corral a chance. I mean, honestly and truthfully, I think Matt Corral will show you something different.
Did you see how bad he played against the Commanders in that first preseason game? It was hard to watch. I'm not tying my season or anything on Matt Corral. I'm going for dynamic. I'm going for crazy.
And this all depends on where we finish at the end of the year. Because if we finish in the top 5, I got a couple quarterbacks I like in the draft. That CJ, that's my guy. I'm not gonna lie to you. And if he's there, I'm sorry to Matt Corral, right? But on the bright side, you didn't have to get coached by Matt Rule, so you still a chance for you somewhere else, just not here. It just can't be here, my boy. But if there's a chance for me to go get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, not Will Levis, but anybody else, then I'm definitely going to take the plunge, and I'm going to allow my new coach to have his quarterback and his guy. The same way we let Matt Rule give Cam the boot and start off with Teddy Bridgewater, we owe it to everybody else at that point to at least try to get a good quarterback. I mean, guys like Byron Leftwich are out there. Pep Hamilton's got Houston scoring 20+ points on the Chargers with the all-star studded defense. There are guys out there that you can go get, bro. Just take the plunge and go get us somebody.
And that's my thing. I think, I think it is early for the quarterback talk now. I would agree a little bit with Lamar, although, I mean, look at if this is what he's going to, I mean, now it's the Bills, but clearly the coaching was not very great today in Baltimore, and they gave up that 10, 15-point lead to lose that game. And with the line, Lamar was running around. It looked very reminiscent of a play that could absolutely happen in Carolina. I think, though, it's too too quick to talk about it because it's the issue that I've had every single freaking year. And at this point, the QB talent in the college level is enough, depending upon where we fall, for me to say, okay, bite the bullet, take it. The line is at a good place for now. I mean, you keep Moten where he is. He's going to keep developing. You've got, again, some bargain bin guys, but they're doing a little bit better than they're supposed to. You get that center under wraps, and I'm feeling a little bit better about it. But I don't want to throw another quarterback into this position to where they're going to have to work with this. They're going to have to work with a question mark at offensive coordinator and head coach. Because I think
all this is under the guys that they're gone. That's I'm speaking from the guys that them boys out of there.
And I agree with you. And I see why you're thinking that way, but also I mean, look at, like, I know there was, some rumor mill going around that Rule was already on the hot seat, going into this game, but I'm not going to believe it till I see it, because it's getting to the point where I don't have any sort of faith in management to cut the cord and to bite the bullet and say, all right, you're out. We're done with you. Because unless there is some sort of thing that we cannot see, some hidden talent, some hidden, just swindling ability that he has, there's no reason that he should have been going into this season. There's just none, regardless of what you think about what the issue with Christian McCaffrey and quarterback. I mean, there's just no reason.
The bright side,
the reason he's still here is because we didn't get to see him with Christian McCaffrey too much.
Right. And even though that's not going to save, I don't know why people keep thinking that's going to save you, but that's neither here nor there. There are some college jobs coming open now that I think Matt Rule has to just take a jump at. Wisconsin's open. Nebraska's open. There's going to be more as the season rolls along because there's some disappointing teams out there. There are going to be some college jobs that I think that at this point, they look better than coaching in Carolina.
But I think also with that, I think the reason we didn't get rid of him because we owe too much money. I mean, he's only been here for X amount of years. He wants to see what he's got, and he doesn't want to see him as a failure. That's the only reason I think he's here. Also, who is he going to get? Nobody wanted to come to Carolina. Nobody wants to take this job as of right now, as the way it was, because they wouldn't have gotten rid of the whole staff. They tried to appease everybody by getting McAdoo, bringing Steve Wilkes back, bringing them back to try to bring that back in the fold. So who would you go out and get? Who I really want, we can't get. We're not going to be able to get a Sean Payton. Sean Payton's not going to come work for Tepper. I would like to see a Byron Leftwich, but I don't think Byron Leftwich is going to leave. I think he's going to be the head coach sooner or later down in Tampa. Pep Hamilton, I would love for him to come home. He was one I was preaching about earlier on in the preseason. I think we should have gone after before we went after Matt Rule or somebody to replace Matt Rule. But I think him and Lovey have an old kindred spirit there, and I think he's going to be probably in the Houston Texans coaching staff. Coaching position conversation coming soon because I don't see Lovey staying there but for so long as well. So I think we got our work cut out for us, and we don't need to go back and try to find another college quarterback. We do need to find somebody with NFL experience, somebody that's coming off of a good tree, somebody that has experience on both sides of the ball and maybe working their way up through an organization.
Yeah, and that's where I just get some issue. But now we've been talking about it. We're going to have some guests come on here. We've got Panthers Ranter coming on here. Hey, man, how you doing?
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't have a mic on, so I don't know if it's going to be working okay, but I appreciate you guys having me on. How you doing?
Absolutely, man.
Terrible.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that was not a fun game to watch, man.
No, it wasn't. And so we know, Panthers Rant is your mantra. It's your mantle, and I'm sure you got a lot to rant about. Give us, a few talking points of some of the things that irked you going forward today or going into today.
Dude, like, where even to start? I thought this was a real opportunity to get the passing game going and turn this offense around. Going in, the Cardinals had one of the worst passing defenses in the league, and we didn't even try to take advantage of that. It feels like the Panthers offense can't go two plays without making a self-inflicted mistake, whether it's a holding call, whether Baker missing a throw, just everything feels like there's something wrong with it. Like there's no good play, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, absolutely. And I think for the first time, though, I will say, I think offensively, penalties was a little bit few and far in between. Special teams definitely was where you saw a lot of the issues there. But also on offense, we weren't playing enough for there to be enough times where you could make a mistake, like there weren't where you could get one of those penalties. We weren't on the field even long enough to do that. And that's what – but you're right. I mean, talk about that Cardinals defense and just what is there to look at.
Today? Did we take a single deep shot today?
Yeah,
we
he
did.
took two
And
that
Baker missed
were just
all
nowhere
of them.
nowhere close to the receivers. The interception and then the one that I don't remember what the score was at the time. I think it was still manageable at that point. I don't think they had scored their second touchdown. But he just completely underthrew. I believe it was either DJ or Robbie. I can't entirely remember off the top of my head. But I mean, just from every single aspect, it just seemed like, just lackluster from the very get-go.
And I think it starts with the coaching staff, man. I mean, probably the two biggest points of the game that pissed me off from McAdoo. One, the first drive where you go quarterback sneak and then halfback dive on 3rd and 4th and 1. Like, just go home. If that's your play call, just go home. And then coming out of the half, you try 2 halfback dives again against stacked Cardinals boxes that get a total of 5 yards, and he gets sacked on 3rd down. The defense was on the field for all but 4 plays in that 3rd quarter. Like, it's just, you can't do that. And, something that I've been taught, like, in football, like, obviously I'm not a coach yet, but, something that, like, kind of had instilled in me, like, as a coach, when you're losing momentum and things are starting to go wrong, you just need to do something to change the course of the game and try to make a big play, whether that means blitzing or doing like a reverse something. And they just never did that. And, it felt like after that CJ Henderson penalty, like the Panthers just never had control again.
Of course, CJ Henderson getting beat on him.
He does it every week.
They tackled him. That was the best tackle he made all game. Honestly, like if he gets beat by this much, he's like, oops, gotta grab, gotta do this, and that. I don't know. Who was a DB here? I don't know.
I was a corner.
Well,
here's the thing. When he's beat, it's not that he's necessarily straight up toasted. If he keeps his technique and doesn't panic, the biggest thing that he panics before the ball even gets there. Are they already on the ground?
He had him in a chokehold before the ball was even 10 yards close.
He did against Cleveland. He did against Cleveland. He did it against the Saints last week, and that almost put them back in the game. And then he did it again today. That completely just changed the course. Like, that might be one of the worst trades that we've done in quite some time, because he's been horrendous for us.
And that's what kind of upsets me too, especially for him. When I was okay with it last year when we didn't have a great staff there as far as our defensive backs are. But now, I mean, you got Steve Wilkes back there. I know he's not telling him to do that stuff. I know he's telling him you got to keep your freaking head on straight, because but then also I think it's just at that point, the DBs especially was where I was concerned about. Gilmore, wasn't going to want to stay, but you also didn't even try to bring anybody else in from a defensive back standpoint. Slay was wanting to go somewhere. He was looking, and he made the right choice to go to Philadelphia and go. But J.C. Jackson was looking to go somewhere. And now he's a bit younger as well. But I mean, in terms of just not adding depth, like you have Horn, but they're all younger guys. Hartfield, like we talked about, you're taught as a defensive back, when the hands go up, your hand goes up and tries to get right in the middle. And if he had done that, Brown's not making that catch, or it's going to be a lot harder for him to get both feet in. But, I think it's another thing that concerns me is that, you look at it, especially at the beginning of the game, you talk about that key play that we needed. You had it with Frankie, really. There was nothing going on before that. You had punt downs. JC, again, and they have the tools to do this. They make the calls. You send JC in like you're supposed to. Chin can't do a blitz. All right, send Horn in. He can make that happen. He makes the effort to create the pick. Luvu takes it all the way to the house. The next play, the next drive, they get the ball back, turnover on downs. We were set up in great field position, and the play that really kind of killed everything was the fumble.
Yep.
And that really really scares me though, because that was a great play design. It was a great play design. DJ had grass if he got that ball going the other way, and you give it to DJ Moore. We've been screaming for that for
DJ
3 years now.
That was a throwback to what we did to them in 2015 during the championship game.
Ted Ginn, that's
what we were trying to do. Rashad Higgins ruined it. Like, okay, I know, and I've crapped a good amount on McAdoo so far, but I don't think he called that bad of a game in the first half. Like, overall, I mean, he had that play that got messed up. Baker missed a few throws, and another position group that really just pooped the bed today. And y'all talked about already, but the tight end position, man, good God, you had like 3 drops in the first quarter alone. And what really irritates me about that is, like, that's a hole we all saw coming in the offseason. Like, we were all irritated when Ian Thomas got re-signed. But Rule just seems to wants to keep these guys around for some reason, when we should have gone out and signed someone who was actually decent.
And it's
like
funny
CJ
enough because
that was my guy that I wanted.
Well, the poetic justice of Zach Ertz on his 40th year in the league on the other side, just making your cornerbacks and linebackers look silly, and that's the poetic justice. And the thing that upsets me too, when we talk, and Shantish was talking about it, there are certain players that have wanted to come here. Carlos Dunlap, Eric Ebron was literally begging for just a chance to get to talk to him, and you shoo them away. And not even Fitterer, but Fitterer is begging to do so, but they're like, well, you have to earn your position. Carlos Dunlap don't need to earn his position or his pay. Eric Ebron, maybe I could understand that, but Carlos Dunlap, come on now, stop it. Stop it.
How much do you guys put this on Fitterer? Because I'm not ready to yet.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's Fitterer.
One that needs to stay. Like
I wouldn't say it was
Fitterer.
Fitterer.
Has his head on straight somewhat.
No, but at the end of the day, I think Fitterer brings him in, but then you got to put it on the coach, right? The coach utilizes the tools in the toolbox. And we went out and we've gotten other players. We talk about Foreman all the time. We talk about Higgins all the time. I mean, there's some other players that we've gotten that we just don't use effectively. So Fitterer knows what he's doing as far as trying to get us players. It's what we do once we get them that's really shooting us in the foot.
And I'll jump in here. Well, the biggest thing, the only reason I can't put it on Fitterer is because I still don't know how. From what we've been told from everybody else, Matt Rule has a big say-so in who's going to make the final cut and put a big part in why Carlos Dunlap didn't leave Carolina with a contract. So with a guy like that at the helm and he's making the final decisions and he's saying things like an 11-year vet who's been a proven pass rusher, been a proven guy in this league for well over a decade, he's telling him that he's got to earn a position on a team that doesn't have a pass rusher outside of Brian Burns that can generate. Like I can't put it all on Scott. I do want to see him get a chance to get his own guy in the building and see how that goes from there. If the next guy doesn't work, then of course everybody goes. But Scott unfortunately came into the middle of a tornado, and then you really can't find his footing with a guy like Matt Rule at the helm.
Especially, and I think especially if you want to believe what came out on Twitter a few weeks ago and the thread of Phil Snow's kind of hand in all of this. If he wants those, especially look at the linebacker position, if he wants those smaller guys, those more hybrid guys that he can have for what he wants to use, it makes complete sense that Damian Wilson or Corey Littleton, who has he been on the field at all? I forgot we had him for a little while.
He's terrible,
there.
Though.
He's been out there.
Bad in coverage.
Yeah, he's been out there. He hasn't done much, but he was out there.
But that would, for Fitterer there to get those guys, and in terms of not keeping some of our other guys, I will give him a bit of some lacks for that. Offensively, I think that again, Foreman, great pickup. That was absolutely what we needed, and especially if Rule wants to take a look at. If Rule's playing at part 2 and he's kind of his hands are tied, then I could see where those things come about. But Michael, thank you, man, for coming on. We're going to talk about a few more things here, but loved having you on, man. You've been a frequent guest, so it's always good to hear from you.
Appreciate you guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to say one more thing about Scott Fitterer because I looked it up. From 2001 to 2020, he was like high up in the Seahawks organization. If I'm not mistaken, he brought Pete Carroll there. He did all of those things to build a football team that is now a respectable team, even though they just lost Russell Wilson. But if we can let him get this going with what he's already learned, how are we not giving him the reins and saying, please take this? David Tupper doesn't care. He doesn't have any say in what's going on.
And I'm highlighting this comment here from Dimitri because again, it's that original sin. The biggest red flag was keeping Hurney there, and we had talked about it back a few years ago when we talked with a former Panthers player Kevin Donnelly, Shantice, and I. We asked why in the world is Hurney still there, and he gave us some insight from an NFL perspective. At that point in time, for when the house was getting cleared, you're so far into your season as a GM. The draft and everything like that it was a bit, too tumultuous to get rid of him at that point. And I understand that, but it again plays into you let him make these cap decisions. You let him make these decisions for coaching staff. Like the draft is one thing I can understand. If it would have just been him making decisions for the draft, I'm okay with that because your draft in the long run, only about 10 to 20% of the players that you put into that are going to have that big of an impact. But when you come with cap hits, when how you move that money around and coaching especially, that's going to have a huge implication on the next 5-6 years of your team to the point where especially he's already out the door. He don't care. And for Tepper, that's where, and that gives me a red flag for Tepper because like you said, he just said, okay, let me just take some other people that let me just take some people here that can do what they need to do, and I'll just, I'll recluse myself of everything else. And that's what he really did. And it seems to be what he does in his business proceedings, because 3 or 4 of his CEOs have left in the last 2-3 months. And that's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah. And like you said, Brock, you went out and got a guy like Scott that's been proven to work for a successful NFL franchise, proven to be able to know how to team build. And it's just, I hate the fact that Scott's not being able to have the full ability to have to say so who's on the roster, who's not, getting his guy in the building. I would love to see, because from the little bit of moves Scott's been able to make, he's been active. And he's made moves that I think have had high value, but I don't think we're ever going to see the full fruits of his labor until he gets to be able to be the head man in charge and make all the decisions, and especially bringing in the next coach, because I know for a fact the next coach will at least be more competent than what we have right now. Because I mean, can it get worse? Yes. The likelihood of it getting worse than this right now, though, I can't see it happening.
And if I'm Scott Fitter, I'm walking in that building telling everyone to show me their rings, because they don't have any. He's the only one in there with a ring, and the only one who knows how to get to the Super Bowl, which is, if that's not the goal, then what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, I think Tepper's going to have to lean on Scott Fitter a lot more on this head coaching job, because he did get the head coach before Scott Fitterer walked in. Scott Fitterer has relationships too. So those relationships are going to go a lot further than what Tepper coming in trying to throw money at one of the latest and greatest coaches out there. He was trying to get the McVay effect. And that's just that's just a diamond in the rough. You're not going to get the McVay effect every time you go out. You're not even going to get the McDaniel effect down in Miami. I mean, those are just two anomalies. Look how LaFleur is he's struggling right now, right? He was the golden boy for a couple of years, but now he's struggling. They've had to redo their roster. They've had to make some tough choices when it came to their salary cap because of their quarterback issues. So there's a lot to be said to that. I'm more interested in Scott Fitterer staying on than I am on us trying to resurface somebody internally to take over as the head coach. I know I would like for Steve Wilkes if we go to an interim maybe, but outside of that, going forward, we do need a whole new fresh look coming into the organization. I think we've relied too much and too heavily on trying to recycle too much. If we would have thought about keeping somebody, again, you know what I'm gonna say. My boy up in Buffalo, Brandon Bean, I totally respect him. So that's like the only kind of thing that I would see us having. But we don't even have that type of regime in place for us to even bring up through the ranks.
I think best case scenario is what you see kind of happening, what you saw happen in Tennessee, 2018, 2019, their best year. They get John Robinson, also coming from the Seahawks organization, coming straight from there as a GM, gets great pickups, gets great draft picks. I mean, if you look at the draft class they've had in the last 5-6 years, ridiculous in terms of who they've been able to get. Now, in terms of keeping those players, whether for health reasons or for money reasons, maybe not made some of the best decisions, but even then you lose AJ Brown, you go get, Treylon Burks, although I hope they didn't end his freaking season tonight, because that was stupid of what they did. Anywho, though, but you think of all the pieces there. You go get not only that, but then you get Mike Vrabel, proven time in the league, different positions, playing as a player and as a coach under good coaches. And then you get Arthur Smith as well for your offensive coordinator, another proven offensive coordinator. And really their only problem that year was that they had to play against Patrick Mahomes, and they had some injury issues too. But I mean, you do what you can with that one. So that's where I'm like, all right, you got your GM now. It's exactly, you get a proven head coach. God, I wish we could have gotten someone like Dan Campbell, or we would have thought about someone like Dan Campbell, because that's the situation we're putting ourselves in now. Is you're going to have to wait, basically. It's getting to a point we're going to have to wait for someone like that to pop up, because even the guys that are out right now, I mean, there's still a bit more on the not inexperienced side, but there is definitely a higher ceiling, but a lower floor as head coaches.
I do think the coaching free agency pool, I think it's still a solid pool that we still have a chance to pick from, because a guy like Leftwich didn't get the Jacksonville job. That's a guy that's of course a guy I would like. Of course, veteran coaches like a Sean Payton, they're still sitting out there. There's still some younger guys that are still in the mix. A lot of these OCs, we see it every year. Everybody wants to go for the young hot and popping OC. I think we'll have our chance if we make the right call and don't wait. Just cut bait.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. We can't be late to the party. That's what's always going to kill you. Always going to kill you. I mean, luckily the Saints didn't do anything drastic this offseason. They stayed with Dennis Allen, but we got to beat them to the punch too. Because I don't know how much there are teams that are going to be I think the biggest thing we got to make sure we're not doing is forgetting that there are 31 other teams that still have to make decisions, that the league is not waiting on us to make these calls. So we better be the first and the fastest to go get our guy the guy that we think is going to be able to be the one to lead for the next 10 years.
But Shantice, we have to be attractive too, though, right? We have to be attractive in that pursuit. And right now, I don't think we're like the redheaded stepchild. You know, we're like the last girl to be called on prom night. You know what I mean? Right now, nobody's really looking to try to come to care as we speak, as we sit today, right? But if you are coming with a much more attractive piece where you've got a Scott Fitterer in the front office, and you know he's really like, look, now it's time for us to change course, right? We talked about it. Now we're going to be about it. That whole conversation. That's what I mean. And if we have something on the horizon of a strategic plan as to these are the quarterbacks we're looking at, this is who we know we're talking to, this is how we see our offense evolving post CMC. You see what I'm saying? So we have to start talking about the future now, as opposed to what we normally do. We talk about the future and the present, and we're always late to the party.
As Scott Fitterer, like you kind of have to be loyal to your guys. So like Matt Rule, you can't just like count him out right now, but in the back of your mind, you got to be.
Yes, you can. About, that's not his guy.
But I mean, that's not his guy. But he's with him on the team. If we're going to build that culture that we want to have, you have to ride or die for everyone in that organization until the end. I'm not saying that you can't think about other options and look.
Okay. So you want to date around? You want to date around? You want to date around while you're married? You want to date around while you're married? That's what you're
Yikes. But no, I mean, I get what you're saying but the problem that's going to come out of that is that at certain point, Tepper's, like I said, I don't think Tepper's going to be the guy to pull the plug. Someone's got to be the guy to pull the plug. And if it's not the owner, it's going to come down to your GM. And to your point, Jason, though, I think as a team, we talk about it talent-wise, or a potential for that talent. I think we are an attractive team. I think that, if you look at offensively, outside of the offensive line, again, being a bit younger, I mean, Robbie has his issues, but Laviska has proven he can be.
Where was he today? By the way?
I think he was hamstring, I believe.
I believe they kept him off for that one. Okay. But
okay. I'm sorry.
I think, offensively,
I think question to ask.
I mean, it's a great question to ask. I mean, it seems like there's always these healthy scratches or these missing names from the injury report that just aren't on the field. That is always a question for me. But I think that, I'm not going to try to say whoever commented this. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but like a guy like, kind of like Ken Dorsey, I think that's, there's guys like that could be able to make this. Obviously Ken Dorsey is a little bit of a question mark because when you got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and some of the other guys, it's hard to call that poorly.
But got to give him credit though. Ken Dorsey was there from the rip, and I remember specifically how Josh Allen looked for those first 2 years, and that didn't look like an NFL quarterback for those first couple of years. So I got to give credit to Ken Dorsey. He was the quarterback coach that helped him progress to this point. Now he's a potential MVP guy. A top 5 quarterback. I mean, there's really no debate about it. If I let a guy like that go pair up with a quarterback, some of these guys that are in this current class, I think we can have something cooking, man. But it's like again. The unfortunate. No, go ahead. I mean, the unfortunate part is, are y'all ready for how this has to look in order for us to get those guys?
I mean, we're already there. We're already there. I mean, we might as well buckle up and just get ready for it. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, you know this, but you know how Matt Rule and them boys do. They tease you for a couple weeks, get you a couple wins. Oh, we got something cooking, you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah. Stink. Yeah. Just be who you are. Let your real self, reveal your real self, and just be. I can't say it on YouTube, but just be who you need to be, so we can at least set us up for the next generation.
I'm just worried about Rule going on like a revenge tour and pissing everyone off to the point where they want to leave. I've never seen DJ angry before, especially in a press conference. And that press conference after the game, when you openly say your receivers aren't getting open, when that's just blatantly not true, I'm afraid. And we talked, like you said, that thread talking about Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, these key pieces of your team that are upset with what's going on. And I'm afraid he's going to start getting worse about it to save his own behind and saying it's on you. I mean, he's always pointed fingers. He did it to Joe Brady. He did it to Teddy Bridgewater. He did it to Cam Newton, continuously pointing fingers at anyone he could. And I'm afraid he's going to continue to do that because, like, if we could keep CMC and DJ, then Ken Dorsey pairing him with someone like that, it concerns me again, the offensive coordinator to head coach pipeline because of the impact they have can either be very, helpful like Sean McVay and the Rams, or it can be more detrimental, like we see with Cliff Kingsbury and at times in Arizona, or you see with Matt LaFleur and where he has been. So, I think that's where I get a bit concerned as well in terms of, having it. It's almost like I wish he would have been, someone we had interviewed. Again, I don't know why that wasn't someone that was on your mind last year, because again, I know why it is, because as an organization, you cut ties with everyone that you had familiarity with. The Bills to, Panthers to Bills pipeline was well and good. Hasn't really happened since, other than I think Mario Addison and F.A. Obata. And then same with Washington as well. And Washington was looking good with almost the exact same offensive coordinating staff, or same coordinating staff that Rivera had at different points in time here. So I get a little concerned with offensive coordinator, and I just get concerned with player retention overall, because the clock's going to start ticking, and it's a different type of ticking than 2016, where it was an age thing, and you had to make sure you got these guys their rings before they got out of here.
Yeah.
Now, exactly. That's what I was saying. If you look on the sideline, these guys are not feeling Rule at all. Like you can tell in the way the body language on the sideline, the body language on the field, series after series coming on and off the field. You know what I mean? There's no swag about it. There's no buy-in to that whole culture right now, from what I can see. Rule blows hot smoke. We come to show up on Sundays, and if we win, we're going to win in spite of instead of for. And that's how I look at it.
That's when it gets really bad. That's when you start to be a real dumpster fire of a team.
Exactly.
I just wish that we could have something to look forward to, because I'm so tired of this like constant cycle of something that nobody wants to see. I think that we just need to do some drastic stuff, because we need to change the game. A guy like Mike McDaniels would have been awesome to have on our team. He was from a great coaching tree, so he's not going to come here, because why would he? He has other better things to do, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But come on, just bring something, change the game up. Like, let's do something out of the ordinary, because obviously what we're doing right now is not working, and it's going to continue not to work. Can't play like everyone else to beat everyone else.
Very true.
You know what's crazy though? Cam Newton has the best quarterback performance of the Matt Rule era. That's the craziest part about all of this. And that's crazy. Because nobody.
I don't know if you're counting out PJ Walker there. If we're talking about
Cam, but like but that's crazy. Nobody's performed better than Cam Newton versus the Washington Commanders last year off of 10 days. This is bad, boy. This is bad. This is something. It's something, boy. But I can't really say it, but it's something. It's something.
So looking forward now, we said this was kind of the beginning of the gauntlet, and it looked a bit easier with the way that the Cardinals have performed. And, it has, I guess, gone down a little bit, but still a pretty hefty gauntlet, talking about having the 49ers come into town now. Another 4:00 game for whatever reason. Again, having 49ers come in. What's our thought process for that game going forward? What are we thinking?
Jimmy G gonna throw for 250 yards on us. No, I think he's gonna throw about for 250. I think we're gonna lose. We're gonna try to show up. We'll probably show up big in the first half. We'll have a mediocre third quarter, and in the fourth quarter, we'll probably give up another 14 points. And then score will probably be something around 28-14, 32-14. And then Baker will probably have 9 batted passes, 2 interceptions. He'll convert 3 for 10 on third down instead of 2 for 10 like today. And we'll be back at the L Dog promoting him.
Nick Bosa is going to run this entire game into the ground. him versus Icky. I am not excited to see that. That is good. We saw what happened. I was at the San Francisco game when we lost like 51-10 or whatever, and I started doing homework in the fourth quarter. I wore 2 different jerseys, and I took one off to try to change the mojo up. Nothing works against the Niners. We are going to get abused in that game by Nick Bosa especially.
And that's not even counting if Javon Kinlaw or Eric Armstead are healthy. We're not even talking about them.
Hey, look, man, Debo Sam, you know what I'm saying? 864 kid, about to go crazy. About to go crazy. I'm telling you, he gonna run for at least 120, couple tutties. You know what I'm saying? He gonna catch about maybe 50 yards passing. Brandon Ayuk gonna go crazy on CJ Henderson. You know it's about Brandon Henderson, CJ Henderson gonna rack up about a good 40 yards and pass interference penalties. It's gonna be marvelous for the other side.
Dante Jackson's gonna give up probably a touchdown on his side. Yeah, CJ Henderson to give up a touchdown on his side. And I don't even know who the running back is right now for the 49ers, but it doesn't even matter. Jimmy G may even run one in on us on the red
Oh
zone.
my God.
Now you know it's crazy.
That's when it's over for me. That's when I turn the TV off.
I'm about to throw the S curl in, get my flannel ready. You know what I'm saying? Throw them W's up, baby. West side. I'm repping them. I'm telling you.
Dude, Debo is gonna ruin us. But I'm excited to see JC versus Debo. That's gonna be pretty cool. So
that should be good.
That is gonna be awesome. I didn't even think about that. I'll love seeing that. I mean, it's sad that we're talking about it like this. That for a team that has lost to the Broncos and the Bears and has only beaten the Seahawks and is down there, who they wanted to be their franchise quarterback, and Debo's not even the number one receiver right now. He's gonna be by next week. I can tell you that right now. They thought Marquise Brown was bad. You're going to get Ayuk and Debo coming into town.
Is Kittle's back next week?
Kittle's back last week. And that's going to be – you thought Zach Ertz was bad.
Who's going to cover George Kittle? Littleton?
You
know what? Put Brandon Smith in. Let's see some cool stuff. I want to –
there's no reason to wait.
He's like a creative player, dude. He looks awesome out there. Put him in
There's no Hey, man. Hey, why is Amari Barno not active? If your turd grows
I think he's hurt, right?
Oh, he's hurt. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was about to say, because if your turd's going out there looking like that, I might well just slap Barno out there and let that boy spin.
With that 4.36 at 6'5", 250, get out of here. That's a freak. Yeah. That's a freak athlete.
I just don't know at this point. And it's going to start that gauntlet going off forward. And again, like I said, got a little bit easier going. But I mean, I do not understand the things that have been done in this organization, and especially with the players that you've had and how you've wanted to utilize them. You bring in guys like Foreman and then do nothing with them. You get guys that, are no names at linebacker and expect them to revitalize the middle of your field. And then your middle of your field's wide open. And then you get, again, with your defensive backs as well. I mean, they're going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt going forward. And I'm concerned about what this game's going to be like, because it doesn't even look to be like it's going to be as difficult of a team as we're playing. But the way we've been playing, I don't know. I don't see us winning that many more games going forward. I really don't.
But I'm not mad about it, because I want a good quarterback. Tank for anyone, honestly, at this point. They had the tank for Tua thing, tank for CJ, Bryce, the guy from Western Kentucky, literally anyone at this point.
Tank for a new coach. That's all we need. Tank for a new coach.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. And look, shout out to the Falcons for winning today. I just want to give a shout out to all the teams that keep making it easier for us. They out there starting Enrique Iglesias at quarterback, and they getting it done.
Shout out to the Vikings. Shout out to the Vikings for handling the Saints over the pond for us today.
Yeah, because at no point do I ever want to see the Saints have success. I hate them. I got a real hate for them. But Atlanta, y'all boys do y'all thing, man. That's cute over there, bro. Just keep on. Just
put Desmond Ridder in.
At this point, I don't know what else we could do. We can keep waiting, but the waiting is killing me. So we're going to go, of course, because it was honoring him today, we're going to end our podcast as we always do. We're going to have to keep waiting, but at least we're going to keep pounding.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, on the broadcast, thank you again so much for coming and watching live. This was something really cool we want to think about continuing to do in the future. So we're going to try to get a consistent one. This is right after 4 o'clock. So next week, again, 4 o'clock. Same time, we're going to try to do this again if you are able to come out. I know there was some exciting games on to watch, but we'll let you go so you can catch on to that Sunday Night Football again. Thank you all for listening every week, for joining in on the ranting with us. It's always fun to hear y'all's thoughts and to hear y'all's reactions to or agreements or disagreements with whatever we have to say.